Good morning and welcome to Navigating the Nuances, Programs of Study, and Career Pathways. I'm Whitney Thompson, Senior Director for CTE, and I'll let Janelle and Ann introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Janelle Jones. I'm Associate Director for CTE.
Good morning, I'm Ann Story, and I am Associate Director for CTE as well.
Great. So today we're going to be talking about the differences between a program of study and a career pathway, as well as how they interact. But before we do that, we are going to provide sort of a background and give you some definitions for really the reauthorization of both the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act as well as Perkins V, which really laid the groundwork for both of these concepts and systems. So first I'm going to talk about the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. It was reauthorized in 2014, formerly known as WIA, or the Workforce Investment Act of 1998. And there were obviously many reiterations of that prior. And this is really the major federal job training program that provides funding to states for the purposes of retraining, reskilling, and allowing new entrants into the workforce. So you have 4 core partners. The first, which focuses on, again, the major job training activities for unemployed, underemployed, in and out of school youth, as well as incumbent workers. The second is adult education. The third is unemployment. And the fourth is vocational rehabilitation for individuals with disabilities. And so the vision here in Illinois is that we will implement these workforce development activities to promote a business-driven talent solutions that integrate our education, workforce, and economic development systems and resources, and able to provide the business as well as the job seekers in our communities the ability to contribute to our growing economy in our state. So it's really job seeker focused and as well as business focused. WIOA formally defined career pathway for the first time, although the concept has existed for a while, but formally defining it in federal law was a major step. It also named post-secondary Perkins, which is, I'll talk about here in a second, as a required partner. And there are a number of required partners for WIOA. So I think it's also important to talk about Perkins, and it is the federal authorizing program that provides funding for both secondary and post-secondary CTE programs. We are now in Perkins V, but there have been a number of iterations and components or implementation of this law going all the way back to 1918 with the Smith-Hughes Act. So there has been overwhelming bipartisan support for CTE funding. And Perkins IV, which was a long-lasting law starting in 2006, defined program of study and the program of study implementation, but there was no reference to career pathways. So when Perkins was reauthorized in 2018, and it was renamed the Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Act. That could be a mouthful, so we call it Perkins V. It revised the program of study definition slightly, but it adopted WIOA's definition of a career pathway. So now we have 2 major federal workforce and education acts and programs that mention and define program of study and career pathway. So this is really an impetus for supporting a comprehensive career pathway system with quality programs of study in Illinois. And I know that both Ann and Janelle will talk about each of these and how they interact, but also sort of how Illinois has laid the groundwork for supporting both programs of study as well as career pathways. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Ann.
Thanks, Whitney. I'm going to speak to you about a program of study and what it is. So as you'll see on the next slide, there's a detailed definition of program of study, but I will just highlight a few of the more important points. The first point that you need to note about a program of study is that it is a sequence of content at both the secondary and the post-secondary levels, and that it culminates in students earning or receiving a recognized post-secondary credential or certificate. The other point I'd like to highlight about a program of study is that all programs of study are aligned to state, regional, or local in-demand sectors, and this is done by using current labor market information.
Okay, I think we're going to stop for questions here, specifically about programs of study, and then we will stop again for questions at the end. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now that we've kind of discussed the definition of a program of study, to get even more detailed, I'm going to talk about the program of study size, scope, and quality. So yes, programs of study are aligned to state, regional, or local in-demand sectors, and we use labor market information. And what's different about Perkins V is that Perkins V requires states to define the size, the scope, and the quality of their programs of study, and that these programs have to meet multiple quality criteria. As you probably remember from filling out your local application, you have 2 years to meet that quality. The criteria must be met no later than the start of the 3rd year of the plan, and along with strategies that schools are going to adopt to address unmet criterion from years 1 and 2. So the first 2 points of the program of study quality criteria that I want to talk about are number 1, development and engagement, and number 2, employer-informed competencies and skills. So programs of study are developed through collaboration, and that's collaboration between secondary and post-secondary education. So we do use labor market information, but we also have advisory committees that have to meet annually to review and support the programs of study, and to possibly consider multiple programs of study within a cluster or a related cluster grouping. The purpose of the advisory committee is there are multiple purposes. They have to review labor market information. They also have to provide input on current industry practices. They work on identifying high skill, high wage, and in-demand occupations and related competencies within the region. They consider long-term industry trends and the future of the work. And they participate in continuous improvement process, which we'll talk about more when we get to criteria number 9. For the employer-informed competencies and skills, basically, the schools have to look at essential employability competencies that are going to lead to the readiness for employment or further education for these high skill, high wage, and in-demand occupations that were identified during the engagement process. Moving on, quality criteria number 3 is academic instruction and supports. So yes, the program has to include challenging academic instruction and qualified teachers and different supports and interventions for the students to kind of ensure their success. But they also have to be, instructors have to be qualified teachers. and they have to be qualified as defined by the State Board of Education or a community college in compliant with the ICCB rules, administrative rules, and accrediting bodies. It's also important to note that dual credit instructors also must meet the same requirements as described in the Dual Credit Quality Act and also be in accordance with ICCB administrative rules. So instructors need to have not only the education, but also the industry experience as they're instructing students. Quality criteria number 4 is recruitment and access. So the districts and colleges have to have a recruitment and retention plan beginning in fiscal year 22. And the purpose of this is to address equity gaps. So you need to identify gaps that are evident as early as middle school. And this includes gaps in program of study access. It includes gaps in participation, persistence, and completion. So your program of study must ensure that access is equitable and all students are able to receive support so that they can not only persist, but so that they can also complete their program. Programs of study have to make sure that students are able to receive support throughout their entire time in the program. Number 5 is instructional sequence. The important thing to remember here is that programs of study have to provide a non-duplicative sequence of courses, beginning through post-secondary education up to secondary education. There are also and stackable credentials incorporated into the program of study. At the secondary level, it's important also to note that there should be an alignment of content. So between secondary and post-secondary coursework, there are stackable credentials, and you have to specify how the program is structured or articulated to provide educational opportunities beyond the community college for the students. This leads nicely into criteria number 6, which is work-based learning. So with Perkins 5, your program has to include a continuum of work-based learning, and that students have to be provided the opportunity or be aware of the opportunity in the beginning of their studies. So as you can see on the graphic below, there are plenty of opportunities or options for students to complete work-based learning, and this can include internships, it can include paid work experience, it can include on-the-job training, transitional jobs, apprenticeships, anything that can lead to remote work for a client or employer or a school-based enterprise. Also, cooperative work agreement and clinical experience are examples of work-based learning that students can participate in. After work-based learning, we also have to look at the instructors. So instructors have to be qualified. They have to have both industry experience, like I said earlier, and the education so that they can instruct students. But they also need to engage in their own applicable professional learning. So instructors should participate in externships just to make sure that they are abreast and knowledgeable of the most current business trends, industry trends being used in their local communities and in these programs that they are instructing. Number 8 is facilities and equipment. Basically, schools need to make sure that they're offering the appropriate, accessible facilities, that they're using industry standard technology and equipment so that students are best prepared as they leave the program and begin their work experience. Finally, we end with continuous improvement. So the district and college continuously evaluates and improves their program of study. And they do this by collaborating with stakeholders, joint advisory committees, local businesses, and again, that instructors are abreast of current technologies and current industry practices, either through continuing education or externships.
Thank you, Anne. So this is an example of a program of study model, which is inclusive of multiple programs of study. And so this was developed to provide guidance and exemplary practices on local programs so that you can adopt this or customize it as you develop your programs of study for approval as a part of the Perkins V plan. It also helps establish a framework for us as state agencies to implement and develop supports for you as you develop your programs of study. It identifies those priority dual credit courses that are foundational in each industry sector and it is well situated for statewide scaling and articulation. It defines the competencies that should be sequenced across a program of study, and as well as identifying those entry points and components where employers can support coursework or be engaged. And so we have developed these in collaboration with the State Board of Education and facilitated by the Northern Illinois University. And this one is specific to manufacturing and engineering. And so you can see here that students have a sequence of courses and experiences that are specific and provide foundational courses for skill development, but also for early college credit. And so that they have a foundation for a number of programs of study as they move through a specific sector or field. So they will start with career exploration and move into more specific courses as they determine which programs they are interested in and in what to enter. And so as you move from secondary to post-secondary, you will see that this particular model, as I said, is inclusive of multiple programs of study. And so let's say they move into welding, right? This is a particular program of study that includes or may include certificates as well as the Associates of Applied Science degree in welding. Or they can move into machining and production, right, which includes a few different options here. And so it's important to note that through the program of study approval process that you will have to do for ICCB, you will have to denote what those sequences of courses are for post-secondary. But this is just showing you the pathway and showing you how multiple programs of study can align and sort of what the secondary to post-secondary transition should look like and the intentionality between the two. So I think this is just a helpful guide, and we also have guides in information technology as well as education and health sciences, and we are developing more as we move throughout the year. All right, now we will turn it over to Janelle to talk about career pathways.
Okay, thank you. So WIOA formally defines a career pathway. However, to further provide detail and clarity, stakeholders from education and workforce agencies in Illinois came together to adopt this career pathway definition here on the screen and to include quality components for the state of Illinois. So I'll just read it. A career pathway is a combination of rigorous and high quality education, training, and other services that aligns both vertically and horizontally across secondary education, adult education, workforce training and development, career and technical education, and post-secondary education systems, pathways, and programs. Collaborative partnerships with these entities and businesses and industry, along with human service agencies, corrections and other community stakeholders serve as the foundational structure for high quality and sustainable career pathways. A career pathway also includes multiple entry and exit points to facilitate individuals to build their skills as they progress along a continuum of education and training and advance in career and sector specific employment. And that comes from the Career Pathway Dictionary in 2018. So this next slide shows a model to kind of help to understand that definition that I just read. And this model was created by the Alliance for Quality Career Pathways group several years ago. So Ann was just talking about a program of study, which is one component of a career pathway. You'll see here the entrance from high school into post-secondary, but also you'll see that a career pathway includes adult education and those coming from the military. And also you'll see different options for acceleration like IET. So when you think about the manufacturing program and study models that Whitney talked about, this whole career pathway model here is based on the manufacturing sector, and you'll see there's multiple programs of study within this pathway and multiple entry and exit points. Particularly this blue arrow here represents the continuum of well-connected and transparent education, training credentials, and support services. So along the continuum, students are able to increase their skills and competency and credentials, and it's all informed by industry and employers. So therefore, partnerships and collaboration are a key factor in career pathways. Like I said, again, in this graphic, you also see multiple entry and exit points. It's extremely important and that's what distinguishes a career pathway from a program. Students are able to begin and exit the pathway at various points and earn corresponding credentials leading to advanced careers along the pathway. So the next slide. So there's several elements of a career pathway that they should include, and these elements can be found in the Career Pathway Dictionary. So I won't go through all of them. I'll just highlight some of the I'll just highlight a few of them, because like 1 and 2, we expect that they should align with the skills and needs of industry, and that they prepare individuals to be successful in a range of secondary or post-secondary education options. But I'll just focus in on number 3. It's important that a career pathway includes counseling to support individuals as they're moving through and exiting and entering the career pathway. So all along the way, there should be counseling, career services, academic counseling available from a variety of education and workforce partners. Number 4, include education offered concurrently. So we want to make sure that education and workforce opportunities are, again, offered concurrently, and that accelerated options like dual credit and integrated education and training are available along the pathway. Number 5, again, this is really the essence of a career pathway. You should organize education and training and other services necessary in a way that helps individuals accelerate through the path and advance in their careers. The combination of services are intentionally organized to help students move through the pathway. And then finally, well, not finally, but number 6, we'll talk about that one. Enable an individual to attain a secondary school diploma or its recognized equivalent at least one recognized post-secondary credential. So again, we talk about adults, whereas accelerated for adults who may not have completed a high school diploma to be able to obtain those credentials. This here is a graphic of the integrated career pathways model. Again, just shows you up in the top, where circle says secondary to post-secondary programs of study. So this here is where a program of study and a career pathway intersect. So, and it just shows you, like you can see in the graphic, how that's the program of study is just one element of a career pathway. So yeah, it's just a larger career pathway. A program of study is one. You have the stackable credentials. You have the partnerships here along the continuum, multiple entry and exit points.
Thank you, Janelle. Yeah, I really do think this graphic really explains and hits home the difference and the points of intersection between a program of study and a career pathway. So, I think if you take anything away from this presentation, it is that a program of study is a part of a larger career pathway. It is that secondary to post-secondary sequence of courses. It's specifically designed for that transition, the secondary to post-secondary transition, whereas a career pathway is made up of multiple entry and exit points for a variety of individuals, including adults, including those who are exiting the military, including those who are participating in apprenticeship programs. And so you can see here that it is just one of many pathways within a larger career pathway system. We have a number of resources here for you, including the Career Pathway Dictionary that both Anne and Janelle referenced, as well as our program of study approval process. The guides that I mentioned, the drafts are here. They will be finalized in the coming week. So I think that's really important to note that what I shared today was really a draft. We have links to both the Perkins Act and the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act if you are so inclined to read those. Our Perkins V state plan is here, and we're very proud of that. And then the career pathway system graphic that Janelle shared is linked here as well. So now we are going to open it up for questions.